There is a quiet strength that lives beneath the surface of true mastery. It is not loud, and it does not seek attention. It does not depend on applause or recognition. It is the kind of strength that can only be built through self-control, the calmness of a mind that has looked chaos in the eye and chosen stillness instead. You may have heard the name Miyamoto Musashi, the undefeated samurai, the philosopher of the sword, and the author of the Book of Five Rings. Yet what made him legendary was not his skill with the blade alone. It was his ability to rule himself before ruling the battlefield. Musashi lived in 16th century Japan, a time when the land was divided by endless war. Samurai wandered across provinces seeking glory, reputation, and survival. Amid that turmoil walked one man who refused to be owned by anyone or anything. He was wild, independent, and unshaken by the world around him. At 13 years old, Musashi fought his first duel. His opponent was an experienced samurai, older and trained in the strict traditions of the sword. Musashi carried only a wooden weapon, rough and unpolished. When the duel ended, the older warrior lay defeated. It was not strength that had decided the outcome, but focus, the ability to stay completely present while others drowned in fear and pride. That moment planted the seed of Musashi's philosophy. Mastery begins where emotion ends. As he traveled through Japan, he fought more than 60 duels and never lost. Each victory brought him not arrogance, but understanding. He realized that the real battle was not with the sword, but within the mind. Anger, fear, and desire were the true enemies. You might think of self-control as the act of holding yourself back, but Musashi saw it differently. To him, control was freedom. It was freedom from being ruled by fleeting emotions, by the pull of the world, by the noise of others. He once wrote that the true science of martial arts means practicing them in such a way that they will be useful at any time. His words were not limited to combat. They were about how to live. Whether holding a sword or facing a challenge, the lesson was the same. You must be ready, not reactive. Imagine standing in a duel. The air shifts, dust rises, your opponent breathes. Every heartbeat can pull your mind away. If your thoughts are scattered, you lose before the first strike. But if you are still, if you can see without distortion, then you can act with perfect timing. That is the heart of Zen self-control. For Musashi, meditation did not mean retreating to a temple. It meant moving through the world with unbroken attention. His training was not separate from his life. Every duel, every journey, every quiet moment was a form of practice. Later in life, he withdrew to a cave called Raigendo. There he lived alone, surrounded by silence and stone, writing down his reflections on life, strategy, and the way. He said that to follow the way, you must observe deeply and remain unattached to comfort or desire. You must sense the rhythm of all things, knowing when to act, when to wait, and when to remain still. Think about your own rhythm for a moment. How often do you act out of impulse rather than understanding? How often do you react to life instead of moving with it? Musashi taught that control begins not by suppressing emotion, but by observing it. To master anger, you must first watch it rise and fall, like a wave. To master fear, you must feel its pulse, without letting it steer you. Every art he practiced, from swordsmanship to painting, was a mirror for his mind. If he could hold the brush with the same stillness as he held the sword, he knew he was walking the way. He often reminded his students that there is more than one path to the top of the mountain. No single weapon, no single method, no single belief holds all truth. The sword is not sacred. The mind that wields it is. That is why Musashi's discipline was never about rigidity. It was about balance. His control was flexible, his awareness sharp, his ego silent. In one duel, he arrived late on purpose. His opponent had waited in anger and impatience. By the time Musashi appeared, the man's mind was clouded with emotion. Musashi watched, waited for one opening, and ended the fight within seconds. He did not win through force, but through composure. True control cannot be performed or faked. It must be lived. It must be practiced in silence, when no one is watching. Musashi also spoke of emptiness, but not as void or nothingness. For him, emptiness was clarity. It was the space where thought and action merge into one. He wrote that in the void is virtue and no evil, that wisdom has existence, principle has existence, and spirit is nothingness. When you live from that space, you are no longer pulled by fear or craving. You act from calm intuition. You move with awareness. You wait with purpose. Self-control is not a cage. It is a doorway to freedom. Imagine a still lake at dawn. When the water is calm, it reflects the sky perfectly. When disturbed, it loses its reflection. The sky never changes. Only the surface does. The same is true of your mind. Musashi spent his life polishing that surface, training his awareness until no wave of emotion could disturb it. Yet he was not cold. He was an artist. He painted delicate landscapes and sculpted images of compassion. His art and his sword came from the same source of balance between movement and stillness. He understood that discipline is not the enemy of freedom. It is what makes freedom possible. A person without discipline is ruled by impulse. A disciplined person chooses their actions instead of being dragged by them. Our modern world may not ask us to fight duels, but the enemies are still the same: distraction, fear, anger, desire. To carry self-control today is to carry an invisible sword. You do not need to draw it often, only to remember that it is there. It is the power to pause before replying, to breathe before reacting, to choose presence over impulse. Musashi would tell you that this power cannot be handed to you. It must be forged through experience, through reflection, through the quiet discipline of daily life. In the Book of Five Rings, he divided his philosophy into 5 elements: earth, water, fire, wind, and void. Earth stands for foundation and discipline, water for adaptability, fire for decisive action, wind for understanding others, void for enlightenment, the state beyond thought. Each of these elements feeds the other. To live by them is to balance strength and gentleness, patience and precision. Start with earth. Build habits that keep you grounded. Keep your word. Complete what you begin. Then learn from water. Move with change. Do not fight every current. When the moment for action arrives, summon fire. Act clearly, without hesitation, but never from anger. Study wind. Understand how others move, not to judge, but to see their rhythm. And finally, learn from the void, the space where nothing needs to be added or removed. This path leads inward. It is not about victory in the world, but mastery within yourself. Ask yourself, when you last sat in silence, without distraction, without noise, that stillness is the same space where Musashi found his strength. He said that if you know the way broadly, you will see it in everything. The way appears in how you walk, how you speak, how you breathe. It is present in both struggle and peace. In every challenge, you are given a chance to train. When frustration comes, breathe. When anger rises, wait. When fear whispers, listen but do not obey. Each of these moments is a small duel between your higher self and your restless impulses. This is the unseen battlefield, where self-control becomes a living art. Musashi's greatest victory was not over his opponents, but over his own restlessness. In his final days, he wrote, "Do nothing that is of no use." A single line, yet it holds the entire weight of his philosophy. To live that way is to act only when action is necessary, to speak only when words add value, to remain silent when silence teaches more. That is what it means to be a Zen warrior, calm within motion, still within storm. Self-control is not about denial. It is about precision. It is about moving through life consciously instead of being carried by emotion. When you live like that, every act becomes a reflection of mastery. Every breath, a choice. Every word, a deliberate strike. So when the world feels chaotic and loud, when you are pulled by anger or fear, remember Musashi's way. Pause. Observe. Return to the stillness beneath it all. Because the greatest warrior is not the one who defeats 1,000 others, but the one who conquers himself. If this reflection leaves a quiet space in your thoughts, let it stay with you. The lessons of Musashi are not about the sword. They are about awareness, presence, and the timeless art of mastering the self. Musashi's life teaches that stillness is not the absence of motion, but the perfect balance within it. When your inner rhythm aligns with the movement of the world, every step becomes effortless. You no longer push against life, but move with it. Think of a leaf drifting down a river. It does not resist the current, yet it never loses its shape. That is how Musashi lived. He flowed with the rhythm of life, but never surrendered his direction. Is less than #0. 5 is greater than. He understood that self-control is built not in moments of calm but in moments of pressure. The truest test of discipline is not when you meditate alone but when the storm rises and your heart demands reaction. Every confrontation, every moment of tension, is a mirror showing you where you still lose your balance. Musashi treated conflict not as chaos but as a teacher. He learned from every strike, every silence, every hesitation. He believed that a warrior without awareness is a danger to himself, but a warrior with awareness can bring peace even to conflict. To master yourself like a Zen warrior, you must first stop trying to control the world. You must learn to control how you meet it. You cannot stop the wind, but you can learn to move with it. You cannot stop the rain, but you can learn to walk through it without losing your fire. Musashi lived by rhythm. He observed that everything, from the seasons to breath itself, has its own timing. He trained himself to sense that rhythm so deeply that his movements seemed almost inevitable. In battle, he did not think. He simply became the rhythm itself. This is where self-control becomes art. When your discipline is no longer an effort but an instinct. When calmness flows through your veins like water. When presence becomes your second nature. He wrote that in strategy, one must be able to face 10,000 things as one. That means to see all details, yet remain centered. To hold clarity no matter how complex the situation becomes. If you practice that in your daily life, your challenges begin to change shape. They stop feeling like enemies and start feeling like companions that train your awareness. When someone insults you, you see it as a chance to strengthen patience. When plans collapse, you train adaptability. When temptation calls, you practice restraint. Each obstacle becomes part of your training ground. That is what Musashi meant by walking the way. The way is not an escape from life. It is full participation in it, without losing yourself. In his final years, Musashi's hair had turned white. His hands were rough from decades of training. Yet those same hands painted scenes of mountains and rivers with the gentleness of falling snow. People came to him seeking the secret of mastery, but he offered no tricks, no shortcuts. He only said, "Understand the spirit of the way, and you will see it everywhere." Even now, centuries later, his words feel alive, because they speak not to the warrior's sword, but to the human heart. You do not need to be a samurai to follow his wisdom. You only need the courage to face yourself. Every time you choose patience over anger, silence over argument, clarity over distraction, you are walking the same path. And the further you walk, the quieter it becomes. Musashi once wrote that you must understand the heart of the sword. But the heart of the sword is not in its edge. It is in the hand that holds it steady. In the same way, your strength is not in what you control, but in how you hold yourself steady through all things. There will be moments when the noise of life grows too loud, when every thought feels like a battle. In those moments, remember that control is not about perfection. It is about returning to breath, returning to presence, returning to the stillness that was never lost. The Zen warrior is not free from chaos. He simply walks through it untouched. And so, as Musashi faded into history, his lessons remained. To master self-control is to live awake, to see clearly when others cannot, to act when others hesitate, to wait when others rush. You can carry this spirit into your own life, in the way you speak, in the way you listen, in the way you meet the world. Each small choice is a chance to practice mastery. Because every moment, whether calm or chaotic, is a duel waiting for your awareness. And if you walk this path long enough, you may discover what Musashi discovered. That peace is not something you find after the battle. It is what you carry within you during it. So hold your sword of awareness gently. Step through the noise with grace. Be still in motion, silent in strength, and alive in every breath. That is how you master self-control like a Zen warrior. And if this reflection speaks to a part of you that seeks stillness, stay close to it, because the path of Musashi is not far away. It begins here, in the space between your next breath and your next thought.